Why, happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. There's trouble in Mexico, and it's been going on for decades, probably for the better part of 100 years, if not more. So, none of this is really new to me. I mean, I do know that the drug cartels are not really good people. Unfortunately, when you have drug cartels, which is a criminal organization that wants to pretty much enrich themselves with power and riches, they tend to skirt the law or become the law in many cases when you're talking about Mexico. But I'm going to start with something a little bit lighter. I'm going to end with the Americans that were kidnapped. So the first one is this is just a random article talking about how there's a push to label the cartels as a terrorist organization. AGs from New Hampshire and other states asked Biden to label Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. I'm not entirely against this idea, but the issue I have is the government hasn't really told us what a terrorist is. We have an idea what they is, but the actual language is very broad, which can be labeled anyone. They can label PETA, or they can label Greenpeace, or I don't know, something a little bit more peaceful as terrorists, or even the MAGA movement, or the Bernie Bros, or fill in the blank group as terrorists. And that's how broad it's written. So I have some reservations. I'm not entirely against it, but I do think that there's other mechanics that we could do, like the RICO Act or the RICO laws. Attorneys generals from New Hampshire and other 20 states are asking President Joe Biden to label Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. New Hampshire Attorney General John Pomona says the cartels are fueling the drug problem, calling it a health and national security crisis. There's an issue here. Is fueling the drug problem? Gotta ask yourself, why are so many Americans, which are the clientele of these said drugs, going towards drugs? I don't have an answer to how to solve that, but to me, that is something that we should address here in the United States and Europe and Canada. Is like, why do we want to get high? Why do we want to smoke weed or do pills and whatnot? And what are the reasons behind it? Is it for pain management? Then now that you can't get your pain management, you have to go through another type of drug that's not safe or effective? I don't know. These are just questions I have. It'll be unprecedented mood when it comes to the cartels, but the opiate crisis has reached unprecedented levels, and the cartels are starting to take actions that they've never taken before. Formula told WMUR. Formula says the designation will give the state and federal law enforcement agencies more power to freeze cartels' assets, deny entries to cartel members, and pursue tougher punishments. We should all pay close attention to the fact that the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration called Sinaloa and Jalisco new generation cartels, ruthless violence, criminal organizations. They're indiscriminately killing Americans at catastrophic rate or record rate. One of these days I'll learn to read. It is time that we start treating these cartels like the terror organizations they are, Formula said in a news release. Officials warn that Mexican cartels are starting to mix oxalizin into drugs like cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, adding to the concerns. We need to be able to use every tool that our nation has to fight these groups who represents a clear and present threat to our national security. One of the root causes is Reagan. Reagan funded drug smugglers that were not drugging, but trafficking drugs into America in order to beat the Red Scare in one of the countries down in Latin America. It's one of the unintended consequences. Let's hear now for the not so nice news. There was 4 Americans that were kidnapped the other day in Mexico. 2 of them were found, unfortunately, not alive or dead. And 2 are now back in the United States, which is great, don't get me wrong. I am glad that the 2 people were able to be saved. 2 Americans kidnapped in Mexico, found dead. 2 rescued alive back in the United States. 2 of the 4 Americans kidnapped in Mexico were found dead, while the other 2 were rescued alive. Officials announced the survivors, Eric James Williams and Lavitata Tay McGee, returned to their U.S. families. 4 Americans, William McGee, Zilly Brown, and McGee cousin Sheila Woodward, arrived Friday morning in Matamoros, Mexico, which is the eastern state of Tamaulipas, just south of Brownsville, Texas. Shortly after crossing into Mexico, an unidentified gunman shot the passengers of the vehicle. U.S. Embassy in Mexico City said that the Americans had been traveling in a white minivan. The gunman herded 4 U.S. citizens into another vehicle and fled. The Americans were not directly targeted. Attorney General Tampa's Irving Barros said at the news conference, it seems like it was a misunderstanding. Mexican investigators believe the kidnappers may have wrongfully believed that the Americans were a rival human trafficker, a source close to the investigation told ABC News. The 2 survivors were found Tuesday morning in a wooden house in Laguna area outside of the Matamoros. Mexican officials said in the news conference. William had a gunshot to his leg, said the governor of Tamaulipas, Americo Villareal. I'm probably mispronouncing the name. During the 3 days they were held, the Americans were transferred to various places, including a clinic, in order to create confusion and to avoid rescue efforts. The person that has been arrested is a 24-year-old suspect in charge of looking for other victims inside the house. They were found, Mexican officials said. One of the survivors, McGee, a mother of 5 who traveled to South Carolina, or from South Carolina, to Mexico for a cosmetic medical procedure, mainly because it was cheaper in Mexico to get a tummy tuck, and also other medical treatment is just cheaper in Mexico, because I think they're still considered a third world country. Her mother, Barbara Burgess, told ABC, she had to hold my heart when the FBI came to her home on Tuesday when news of her daughter was alive. McGee spoke to her mother from a Texas hospital on Tuesday and told her mother that she had no major injuries. Williams, the second survivor, called his wife, Michelle Williams, and he was being transported to a Texas hospital. She told it was just tears of joy. The bodies of the 2 deceased Americans will be transferred to the U.S. on Tuesday. Mexican official says the State Department is in the process of repatriating the 2 deceased victims. Spokesperson Neil Prince said on Tuesday. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told reporters, we offer our deepest condolences to our friends and families of those that were killed in these attacks. Price said that we thank our Mexican and U.S. law enforcement partners for their efforts to find these innocent victims and task forward to ensure that justice is done. President Joe Biden has been kept up to date on the situation. The White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said on Tuesday, adding that the U.S. officials are in touch with the families. Jean-Pierre called the attacks on the citizens unacceptable I mean, is it only unacceptable because it was widely reported on? I mean, there's literally probably tens to 20 people that get kidnapped in Mexico, probably more to hundreds of people getting kidnapped in Mexico, where we just turn a blind eye because it doesn't make the media attention. John Pierre, oh yeah, U.S. Attorney General, not General, yeah, General Merrick Garland said in a statement Tuesday that the Department of Justice will do everything in our power to hold those responsible for the attack to account. But should we label them a domestic terrorist? I mean, I don't know. I mean, not domestic terrorist, but a terrorist organization. I mean, if we do label a terrorist organization, does that mean that we go shock and awe and just target all the drug cartels, or just only a couple drug cartels? Do we only target the ones that attack America directly? And this is really my issue with Mexico is I think the people of Mexico are the ones that suffer the most. I mean, those are the not necessarily law-abiding citizens, but ones that just want to live. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're law-abiding or unlaw-abiding because I don't know. I haven't been to Mexico in over probably 20 years or probably more closer to 30 years or 25 years, which doesn't really matter. The point is, there's a lot of people that just want honest work and they wanted to live their life in peace. And those people have to suffer because the drug cartels became so powerful that the Mexican government can't control them anymore. And Mexico is our most southern neighbor. So Mexico has fallen and has been falling for decades. And probably some will say it's been falling for probably close to 100 years because the cartels took over and they have a saying either lead or gold or lead. So you either get bribed and do the cartel's bidding or you get a face full of lead or a belly full of lead and you end up being buried somewhere. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, if I was in charge, which I'm pretty sure Mexico is glad I'm not in charge, is that we would have military raids on cartels and we are actually ingrained into Mexico to ensure that the cartels cannot get back in power. Definitely work with the Mexican authorities to make sure that they're no longer criminally corrupt and that they actually have honest politicians, as honest as our own American politicians, which is a very low bar because I know that most of our politicians are corrupt in some way, shape, or form. And really take back Mexico from the cartels and give it back to the honest people of Mexico so they can live the best life that they can live, to make sure that they have a safe neighborhoods and cities where they can live and thrive. I mean, that's what I would do. It'd be a multi-agency approach. It'd be with the FBI, with maybe special forces or military operations, working with the Mexican government, assuming that they want to work with us. And if they don't want to work with us, well, we're no stranger to regime changes. We could back someone that's going to be more favorable to promote American law and making sure that the drugs don't come over to our border. And that's the thing is we really need to root out the corruption that the cartels have onto the government so they can become more honest politicians and actually do the bidding of the Mexican people. By no means do I think we should take over Mexico, but help them become independent from the cartels. Those are my thoughts. Now, I don't know if what I said were controversial or not, if it's going to get me canceled or not. I don't really care. I'm just tired of the violence in Mexico. Seems like Mexico is not able to get a handle of its own self to promote the peacefulness to allow people to thrive. With that being said, that is my video for today. Leave a comment down below what your thoughts are. But most importantly, two things. Don't go to Mexico unless you absolutely have to. And have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.